Welcome, everybody. Whatever happens, conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. Those are some words that were written by the Apostle Paul in a letter that we call Philippians. They're found in Philippians 1:27. And they are the words that have been driving me for the past 3 or 4 weeks now as we continue to walk through this, what I believe is a historical time in our country and in fact in our world. I've been struggling myself with how to walk through this. It's pretty clear, in fact it's very clear, that we've got problems. We've got problems that need to be dealt with. We've got problems that need to be brought to light. We've got some deep issues and some things that have been taking place for a long time that we need to, I guess, put a stop to and go a different route with. But I'm out in western Kansas in a small little town pastoring a small little church, and I have been struggling with where my role is in that. All I get is what's on the news, what comes out from the cities, what happens in other places, and what I witness from where I sit is, again, the fact that we have issues, but I also see what I feel like is a country tearing itself apart. And I'm going to mention in this video that you're about to watch that there's a point where I just want to walk outside and just go, stop, to everybody. And I don't mean stop bringing up the issues. I don't mean just stop and pretend like it's not there. I mean, I think of it as when my two kids, or when they're younger, riding in the back of a car and they're fighting and they're picking at each other and they're obviously there's a problem, but they don't want to deal with it. And you just want to turn around and say, stop it, knock it off, be done and figure this out. It's kind of that I've had going through my mind, because I feel like we are literally at the moment tearing ourselves apart. But again, like I said, I'm in western Kansas, a small little town, small little church. I'm a no-name, and that's okay. So what can I do about it? And in my time of praying and devotion, I came across these words of the Apostle Paul: whatever happens, conduct yourself in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. And then he goes on in Philippians 2 and lays out a model of what that could look like. And I realized that's what God was telling me that I am to do. I call myself a follower of Jesus, and he's saying that no matter what happens, you worry about acting like one. And so I felt that I needed to share that with the church that I lead, and it's something that we're challenging each other on. And in doing that, I shared a message on about 3 weeks ago, and I got some responses. But one of the things I encouraged us to do was to stop, as Paul says in here, to stop grumbling and stop arguing, basically stop fighting, and to respect each other and to honor each other and to look at each other's interest and think of others above yourself and actually care for each other, or do what Jesus said was the greatest command: love each other. And the best way I know how to do it is sit down and talk and listen to each other and try and work out what needs to be worked out. Not be pointing fingers, not be throwing out phrases, not catchphrases that are going to get people's attention, not just be putting out hot takes, but actually stopping and talking and listening to each other and trying to come to a solution as we move forward. There were some that didn't agree with me and some that did. And one of the comments that was made was, who can we talk to here to help us to be able to do that? And through that, I was taking some time praying out while I was doing yard work one Monday, asking God, who can I talk to? Who can we talk to here? What can we do to start this process? And he brought to mind a friend of mine named Trey Giles. And I felt like, I need to sit down and visit with him. And I wonder if he'd be willing to let me record it and model and show what it is that we are trying to say that we feel like we ought to be doing. And his response was awesome. He said, absolutely, he would love to do it. And he was willing to sit down with me and with another friend named Patrick McGinnis, who owns the coffee house, the Breathe Coffee House in Hays, Kansas, and just have a conversation that, one, helps us to talk and listen to each other, but two, maybe help model what we really feel like needs to take place, needs to be happening. And so that's what this video is about. It's not professional. It was recorded with a cell phone. In fact, I messed up so much that in the middle of it, I got a phone call, and that's why it's in two parts, because it shut off the phone when a phone call came in. We're not experts on this whole thing. None of us are. We're just trying to be ordinary people figuring out how to move forward with these issues that are in front of us, that have been with us for a while and are deep-seated and are going to take a lot of work and a lot of care and a lot of love to move forward in. So as you watch through this, if you choose to watch through this, I want you to know that, like I said, none of us claim to be experts. We're pretty ignorant in many ways. Probably say things that, especially at this time, that someone will not like to hear or even hear us ask. But I don't think that if we just ignore it, if we quit asking the questions that are on our mind, if we don't start from where we are and ask the questions we need to ask to get us where we need to be, that it's not going to do much good. We need to humble ourselves and look to the interest of each other and put each other above ourselves. Stop grumbling, stop arguing, as Paul says, and especially those who say they're followers of Jesus, conduct ourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ, no matter what is going on. It's not lost on me that we're all friends in this video, so it's a little easier for us to have this conversation than maybe someone who's made it difficult in your life that you don't get along with, but that's still what we're called to do. So as you watch this, I encourage you to just watch with open ears, listen with open ears. Trey, oh, I love that dude. He is well-spoken. He is very smart. He is wise beyond his years. He is someone that we need to be listening to with a good heart that cares about humanity, the people that God created, the people that God loves. And listen as these questions are asked and as the dialogue takes place, even when we veer off course, and think about where you are and who you might be able to talk to. And I would also ask you, whether you believe it or not, that you would just pray that maybe through this, something would help you walk through it and have your part in this time in history, would show you how you could be involved or who it is you might be able to talk to and how you could carry on what we hope to model in this video for you. So take this for what it's worth. Again, it'll go where it's going to go. It's going to do what it's going to do. But take it and watch it and listen, and then go forward and talk to somebody else and look to their interest and love on them and see if maybe step by step, piece by piece, bit by bit, we might be able to move forward into the future a little different than we've lived in history.
Yeah.
Everybody, we're going to sit down today with Trey Giles and Pat McGinnis. And let me say with Pat first, one reason he's with us is because we are at Breathe Coffee Shop, or Coffee House, I guess is what it really is, huh? And the real reason, this is a coffee house, but it's just a disguise for a ministry called Dialogue Ministries. And actually, you want to just share real quick a little bit of why you created this? You can say it better than me, you're sitting right here.
Yeah, I mean, and it's as simple as the name. I wanted to create a place, be intentional about not only creating a space, but working in my ministry to create dialogue, especially about sensitive topics or the things that, I totally believe that Christ came into this earth to intervene, not into all of our easy stuff, but to intervene into all of our tough stuff. And for me anyway, I'd spent a lot of time in the church trying to make Sundays about something easier than dealing with the hard stuff, and spent a lot of time trying to do that. And I wanted to flip-flop that, turn it into something where I actually was spending my time and my energy trying to figure out how to talk about the hard things, but knowing that we don't really practice that, and we don't have good opportunities to have difficult conversations. So if I'm not actually trying to create those space, that time, and those people, we're not going to have it. And then we're also, as Christians, I think we don't ever do it.
Yeah.
And so this is another one of those good examples. We don't have these conversations. We don't know how to have them. They make us nervous. It's easier to sit in our house behind a computer than it is ever to have a real conversation because we're afraid of how it's going to respond. So I just feel like if I do that 100 times, maybe I'll get better at it.
Yeah.
If I help other people do that 100 times, maybe they'll get better at it. And maybe we'll actually be able to engage each other heart to heart instead of politic to politic.
Yeah.
it's kind of neat. We're having it in the coffee house, and the one thing we'll run into is people are going to walk in because it is not private time here.
Well, that's
You
the
are
other
not
goal, though.
closed.
I wanted it to be a public thing, so like people would happen past it.
So we've already had one wave at us as we were sitting there talking, not knowing what's going on. But anyway, for those that don't know, those that are part of the Joaquini Church of God especially know where I pastor, that many know that this has taken place. But 2 weeks ago, I think it was, I shared a message that was I just felt like I needed to share based on everything going on in our world, and not just necessarily the topic we'll talk about today, but just everything, because I'm just at a point where I wish I could just shut everything off and walk out and just yell stop to everybody stop. Honestly, we're tearing ourselves apart right now, I feel like, and man, it was just bothering me. So I just had been praying about, as a follower of Christ, and obviously I'm sharing on Sunday morning to those who say that they are, how are we supposed to respond? Because I can't walk out and say stop. I can't do that. What can we do here? What do I need to do? And before we went into the lockdown stuff, our little Sunday school class was studying Philippians, the love letter from prison that Paul wrote, and I don't think it's ironic that that's where God just keeps bringing me back to through this whole thing. Every time I'm praying about something, I end up back in Philippians. And in Philippians 1:27, Paul makes a statement. He says, whatever happens, live a life worthy of the gospel. Actually, I'm doing Ephesians. He says, conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. So whatever happens, conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. And those two words, whatever happens, are what got my attention. Whatever is going on, whatever's happening, don't throw your relationship with Jesus out the window in the name of something else because it's bothering you. You still need to act and conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. And so he goes on later and gives us an idea of how to do it. And he says, basically, if you have comfort from being connected with him and his love, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. And then later on, he even says, quit grumbling or arguing, but become blameless and pure. And I took all that and just looked at that and thought, okay, that is the model that he's setting out there for us that we need to follow. But how do we do that? And the only way I know to do that is start saying, let's stop and let's talk. We need to sit down and we need to talk to each other. And it's not, again, a polarizing or a quick fix solution, but maybe we'll actually get to know what each other's interests are, or where we're coming from, or what we're struggling with, or why things that are happening are difficult from what we'll just call today both sides.
Exactly.
And so I did get some responses from that, from people that agreed, but they said, that's great, but who can we talk to out here in Little Western Kansas? I'm in Joaquini. At least Hayes is, 8 times the size of us or something? I don't know, 6 times, 5 times, whatever you are. At least there's a bigger area where there's more to talk to, especially in Joaquini. And we got a relationship and a connection with Trey Giles, and he's the one that came to mind. And I was praying about it on Monday, going, how can we, but you're getting ready to leave, I'll let you share that with them, but how can we utilize the time we have with him? And I called him and said, would you be willing to sit down and have a conversation and just sit down and dialogue, and let's record it and put it out there? And what I love is he responded like he always responds, where it was absolutely. I mean, you could just hear the joy and excitement even over the phone. But I think your only requirement was that it needed to be more of a Christ-centered conversation instead of politically centered, even though obviously we'll talk about political things going on, but also that you don't know the questions that are coming, because I said, I'm going to bring you some questions from a white culture perspective with what's going on of why we may be defensive and why there may be some fears to some of the things that are being put out there. But at the same time, we want to hear where you're coming from, because that's the only way we're going to learn.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll get into it. Those that were there, go back and listen to the message and hear the whole story about Wade Norris and what made me come to that. So anyway, Trey, so I'm going to just, as we get started, I just want, maybe for those that don't know you, if you could just share a little bit about who you are and why we would have picked you to want,
That's perfect.
to
Yeah,
talk
for
to
sure.
and what you're getting ready to do.
Yeah. Well, hello again to everybody who I've already met at the Joaquini Church, and all the viewers. What's up? Welcome. But yeah, like you said, my name is Trey Giles. I grew up in Colorado Springs. I went to Fort Hays State during undergrad. served in West Africa for a couple years in the Peace Corps in a country called the Gambia. And then after that, came and was a youth pastor in Hayes for a little bit. And currently I work at Fort Hays State University doing student engagement. But my wife, Karma Giles, and we're getting ready to actually go serve as missionaries over in Aruba. We're going to do that for 6 months. And so we're going to leave sometime early July. Just, things just keep changing a lot, but July, and we'll be there until December. Just working with youth, empowering some youth leaders, and hopefully equipping some of the local leaders to just lead that ministry themselves, because local leadership looks a lot better than someone from a foreign place. And so that's kind of where we're at. And, for me, I'm half white, half black, if you're kind of wondering. But culture at large would usually see someone like me as a black man. And I've always identified as a black man. And that's its own conversation. But, today I just want to have a conversation about everything going on. I would love to give my input. And I think, as we sit here, it's important for all of you watching, and I already know the heart of the men I'm sitting with, but just like I am one black perspective who grew up in College Springs, has a college education, and has lived in like Colorado and Kansas for most of his life. And that my perception and ideals might look a little different than a full black person who lives in Chicago or LA or Harlem. And that I'm just one voice, and that, I try to model my voice after the way of Christ as much as I can. And I'm learning to do that better and better. But even someone who also loves Jesus might have a very different perspective than me, and that's okay. And so I'm just ready to have some dialogue, and I'm excited. I don't know any questions coming my way, because I want it to be raw and real. And when we don't know, I just want to say, I don't know, because that's okay. And so, I'm excited.
I mean, I'll pull this closer so you can't see it.
Yeah, I don't care. You're good.
Head on there. I don't think you told them, though, what are you doing after Aruba? Because that's pretty dear to my heart.
Yeah, for sure. And so, pinned in the Lord says something else, but it feels right now that my wife Karma and I are feeling led to move to Portland, Oregon, after we serve in Aruba. I just got accepted into Western Seminary up there. And I think we're going to live in the Oregon area long term. Like I said, if the Lord says something else, we'll turn on a dime. But it really seems like that Portland, Oregon will be where we put down some roots, man. So I'm excited. Portland is very different than Western Kansas. And, I'm excited for that culture. It'll be fun.
And the reason I wanted you to share this, because I got a lot of friends coming from Portland that might even see this. Look him up. I mean, this is a guy to get to know, and
a niece in Portland.
Honestly, I'm very excited that you're going to Portland. You've heard me say it for a long time. You were made for Portland.
Amen.
You were made to be there and connect and understand. I could see you really making a difference in that area, and so I think it's awesome.